So 2018 is upon us, and with it came a rather unexpected announcement from Yongnuo. A 14mm f2.8 lens for full-frame cameras, and I know what you're thinking. Who the frig are Yongnuo? Well, Yongnuo are a Chinese company that have gained a bit of a reputation in recent years for making the most of the rather relaxed / non-existent copyright laws that China doesn't have. So initially they started off producing budget level flash guns and remote triggers for those flashes, and they were just kind of in and amongst the rest of the companies and not really making much of a name for themselves. And then they started producing stuff like this. Now this is the YN600EX RT Speedlight, and this is the YN E3 RT radio trigger. And the reason that they look familiar is because they are exact clones of the Canon 600EX RT flashlight and the ST-E3EX radio trigger. This cloning from Yongnuo was even stretched onto lenses. They released a 35mm f2, a 50mm f1.8, a 100mm f2, and a 2x teleconverter, all of which look not only remarkably similar to the Canons, but also have exactly the same optical formula. They did release an 85mm 1.8, which did slightly buck the trend. Whilst looking very similar to the Canons, it was actually slightly different optically. And this is where the confusion with their 14mm come into play. When it was announced, a lot of the websites that were reporting on it used the word clone, and everybody immediately assumed that it was a carbon copy of the Canon 14mm f2.8 L Mark II lens. While there is no denying that Yongnuo have clearly drawn inspiration from Canon in the design of this lens, externally it looks very similar, optically it is actually quite different. The Canon lens uses 14 glass elements in 11 groups, whereas the Yongnuo uses 12 glass elements in 9 groups, so internally it's actually quite different from Canon. All of Yongnuo's products, whether it's a clone or not, all have one big difference over their Canon equivalents, and that's price. Generally, the prices of anything from Yongnuo is half to a third of the price that you can expect to find the Canon for. While it is true that in terms of build quality and performance from the items, generally the Canon will outperform the Yongnuo, if you actually factor in the price as well and look at a price to performance aspect, the Yongnuos are actually quite a tempting offer. So what can we expect from this new 14mm lens from Yongnuo? Well, when it was first announced, I was actually rather excited. Not that excited, but I was very intrigued. Canon's current 14mm prime lens is on its version 2 now, and that was released back in 2007, which is over 10 years ago. And yet, despite it being a decade-old lens, it still retails new for £1,700. So my initial thought was, what's the Yongnuo gonna cost? £489. That's 3.5 times cheaper than Canon! So there are some glaringly obvious differences that go some way to explaining the huge price difference between the Canon and the Yongnuo. The Canon being an L lens is weather sealed while the Yongnuo isn't. The Canon has an ultrasonic motor which is fast and silent. The Yongnuo has a direct drive motor which are generally slow and noisy. But when you consider that there is a £1,200 price difference between these two, it does beg a question, is the Yongnuo worth considering? Which is why I've bought it. So unfortunately the lens isn't actually due to arrive with me for about 2 weeks. However, when it does arrive, I will be doing a complete unbox and a thorough review of that, and I will be posting the video up here as soon as I can. What are your thoughts of this lens? Is it something that you're considering buying? Is it of no interest to you whatsoever? Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button so that you'll know as soon as that review or any other videos that I publish go live. If you did like the video, please give it a thumbs up. It is always appreciated. And until next time, I will see you later.